Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Kunafa and Shay, a podcast produced for HowlRound Theatre Commons, a free and open platform for theatre makers worldwide. Kunafa and Shay discusses and analyzes contemporary and historical Middle Eastern and North African, or MENA, and SWANA, or Southwest Asian and North African theatre from across the region.
I'm Marina.
And I'm Nabra.
And we're your hosts.
Our name, Kunafa and Shay, invites you into the discussion in the best way we know how, with complex and delicious sweets like kunafa and perfectly warm tea, or in Arabic, shay.
Kunafa and Shay is a place to share experiences, ideas, and sometimes to engage with our differences. In each country in the Arab world, you'll find kunafa made differently. In that way, we also lean into the diversity, complexity, and robust flavors of MENA and SWANA theater. We bring our own perspectives, research, and special guests in order to start a dialogue and encourage further learning and discussion.
In our fourth season, we focus on classical and historical theater, including discussions of traditional theater forms and in-depth analysis of some of the oldest and most significant classical plays from 1300 BC to the 20th century.
Yalla, grab your tea. The shay is just right. In this episode, we are joined by Fidaa Ataya, a Palestinian storyteller who talks with us about the tradition of the hakawati and how she and her work are looking at different forms of storytelling, from ancient traditions to new ways of storytelling in Palestine.
A quick bio. Fidaa Ataya is a storyteller. Her grandmother, forcibly expelled from her home and homeland in Al-Burj, Palestine in 1948, would tell her stories. As she listened, Fidaa would fly with her imagination across borders, across the occupation, to freedom. Traditionally, women in Palestine told stories in private, not in public. But Fidaa tells stories in public, using them as a tool for survival, to pass on the anthropology of her people, to prove their existence and resistance. She holds a bachelor's degree in education and psychology, diplomas in drama and education and playback theater, and an MEd in integrated arts from Plymouth State University. Fidaa has produced and performed shows in Palestine, Europe, America, and the Arab world, and performed in numerous festivals across the globe. Fidaa has founded or co-founded a number of groups, including the Art and Activism Residency, Hakaya Group to revive traditional Palestinian storytelling, Arabic School of Playback, Women's Theater at Burj El Barajna Refugee Camp, the Rain Singer Theater at Tulkarm Refugee Camp, and the Palestinian American Children's Theater, or PACT, and Heart El Risan Art Museum, or Haram. She is a drama and education specialist and was faculty member at the Arab School of Playback Theater, a member of ITC4 in New York, as well as a puppeteer, filmmaker, and director. She has directed several short films which have been shown in Palestine, within the United States, France, and in Italy. With Suraj Libraries, she is running the National Storytelling Center in Palestine and teaching and directing the Storytelling Academy. As she is a fellow at Georgetown's Laboratory for Global Performance and Politics, she continues to teach arts in education, arts in public, theater, and storytelling in Palestine and abroad.
Fidaa, it's so good to have you with us today. I only got to meet you once briefly in person, but it was such a wonderful day where I got to join and see some of your storytelling marathon in Kufr Aqab. So great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Marina, as well, Nabra, for inviting me to join that storytelling.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into storytelling? How did you get involved in this as your project?
You know, as a human being, every one of us have a tongue where we are really having the tool to storytelling. When I say tool, that means narrative. And then, because since I am Palestinian, I think that's the here. This is my tool to exist and to be, to heal, to survive, and to be strong, and to root myself in order to grow and grow our stories all over the world. So I remember when I was like child in early childhood, when I was sitting on my grandmother lap, and she used to tell me stories. With her stories, I could have just fly all over and cross our borders and even swim in the ocean as well, imagining something I never saw in my life. And then from that inspiration, I decided to become a storyteller in public. My grandmother used to tell stories in private. And this is who I am. I think that's my like journey started from there. I did my journey still, I don't know for how long will stay, so I don't know what to continue now and what to speak after.
That makes sense. When I love talking about like the what our ancestors did and then also how we're taking that up and doing something slightly different. When I saw you, I visited you at Siraj, the National Storytelling Center in Palestine this past summer. And that day you were doing the storytelling marathon, which I hadn't heard of, and I think it was your own creation. Can you tell people listening a little bit about that project and what the kids were doing?
Yeah, first of all, Siraj Libraries established the National Storytelling Center. I joined them to establish that together in Kafr Aqab Old City, which is Area C, that mean under Israeli military law, but owned by Palestinians for sure, which is like an old building, more than 150 years old, and has been forgotten for years. We came and we renovate the location, the building, and we said, okay, let's tell our stories through this place and let's share it all over Palestine and over abroad. Um, Siraj Libraries started the storytelling marathon since years and years, and the idea of it to work with three generations. First generation, the elders who have the stories, the narrative from their ancestors. And the second generation is the youth, anyone who's from like 18 to 50 years old. And the third generation is teenagers who's like from 12 to 16 years old. So the idea is to that we train the mid-age people, that mean youth, to how they can collect khararif from elders, mean old people in Palestine, and khararif mean folk tales. How to find the people who saved that history, how to listen to them, how to rewrite the story again as exactly it was told, because this is a big responsibility. Since the folk tales, as Professor Sharif Kanana said, that's more than 2,000 years old. So then the second step, after they collect the stories, we train them to collect the stories. They go to collect the stories after they find the narrative, and mean we call natural storytellers. They come back and we choose there is a committee for the storytelling marathon, choose like the stories that has to be told in each location. Then we teach again back how you can tell the stories for the youth, and then they go back to the kids or teenagers and they tell the story back to them, and then the kids learn the stories, and then they prepare themselves to tell the story back to the community or to the communities. And the storytelling marathon this year was within 10 partners, Jordan Valley, Kufr Aqab, let's say, and many other locations, and was also in Dir Ammar refugee camp, Aida refugee camp, South Hebron, and Tubas, you know. And in the end, all the kids start telling the stories in the same day, and end like after 3 hours. They go find the audience. The audience don't come to them. They go to the audience. They knock doors. They go to shops. They tell in the streets, in hills, gardens. They go to schools. They go to universities and even falafel shop and even pharmacies, mechanics, and they tell stories. That the child who tell the story more for more people, that mean they are the winner. As soon as you tell stories for bigger audience, that means that you are number one in storytelling. We got a child who told the story, the same story who told the story for more than 1,200 people in 3 hours. And that's a big number. And we discovered that there is amazing, incredible child who tell a story in a very, very, very unique way during the marathon, where we also gifted this person as well. And we discover amazing, incredible natural storyteller from Jordan Valley, who really tells, who have been saving a lot of stories from her ancestors. And this is how we honor them, to thank them and to just gather with them and listen to them and share the stories to the community. um, Back to performance, we do this consciously. So we I designed with my team that a storytelling marathon consciously, and we were very careful about the type of stories they tell in the community and why and when, and who telling the story now, so for example, let's say in Kafr Aqab, we collected the story from elders, that mean more than 60 years old. Then that we teach it to volunteers who's like mid-age. Then they tell it for young children, teenagers. Then the teenagers back to the community tell the story back to the community, whoever. This is how we raise the Palestinian storytelling and how we raise the folk tales back. We shake it back in the middle of all of this occupation, colonization, and even media, all over us. In the middle of dust, we say we grow and we continue life.
I love that so much. I mean, I think some of the words that you've really touched on too, of like conscious, being really conscious about what stories you're telling in a community, telling community stories back into that community, this intergenerational exchange of getting stories from your elders and then like giving them into the community. That's all so beautiful. So I just really appreciated getting to see part of this project, and to know that this has been happening for a while and that this is something that's happening in multiple communities. I mean, it just sounds like such a moving project. And when you've talked to Nabra and I a little bit before we started about the idea of planting seeds and how, and actually what you just described to me sounds a lot like planting seeds in different places, but you were talking about it in relation to some of the work you've done. So like, for instance, you co-founded Hakaya with some other folks, and perhaps you can tell us what that group does. But I know that you have also worked and started other groups too. So perhaps you can give us a little bit of an introduction into some of those groups, and then also how you see your role in, once something is established, going to the next meaningful project to begin something new.
So I met like a Hakaya group, though they were in the first beginning of establishing. That was in Amman when I was performing and taking also to courses in storytelling as well during the festival they do organize with Masrah al-Balad and the Arabic Educational Forum. And I kept continuing performing and taking courses and learning from that festival for 9 years in a row, like behind after for 9 years. Then during those 9 years, when I saw I was part of Hakaya Jordan, then I said, oh, why not we have Hakaya Palestine in Palestine? I did not have the only one who have that thought. There was also other people who have the similar thought. Then we just gathered together and we established Hakaya Palestine, and we create the first Hakaya festival. And then Arabic Educational Forum suggested that if we would love to be under their umbrella, and we said, okay, we can do that. And after that, I felt that there is an umbrella, and I don't think I would love to continue in a deep core of this group because there's other people who can lead and take over. And I start to fade out to seed other places or to plant seeds somewhere else, since like I love also to grow the storytelling like a mushroom, not only like a tree, because to be a tree and to grow deep deep deep, it's not enough. You have to grow as mushroom, as extend as much as you can, because you still under like threat, and you even under this occupation colonization where you don't know when that will end. And then I, with other amazing, incredible people, partners, artists from Palestine and all over the world, we established a lot of groups like a musical theater and rain singer theater and storytelling groups, Khararif, storytelling group, Kanya Makan, and art and activism residency, which based on the real stories from the communities who's really living under direct occupation colonization, as well as Heart Artisan Art Museum, which we tell the story visually about what's going on in such areas, forbidden areas, like areas we are not allowed to be in as Palestinians because of the threat from occupation colonization, and other things like we still continuing. And I think that we have to continue growing deep and extend that widely all over through storytelling in the way maybe that is the only way to be and live and to have our freedom.
That's so meaningful. And for people who are listening too, I think sometimes in the United States we talk about like decolonizing theater and decolonizing different things. So, like using decolonization in some ways as a metaphor. And what I love about what you just described, though, is that it's really decentralizing. So, it's not just giving all the power and agency to one organization and trying to funnel everybody into that organization by starting different things. I mean, I love the idea of mushrooming out. But then you're creating different groups who are able to be responsive to their communities and not just one large centralized organization, which is sometimes what happens with creative processes in the United States. And I think people are really working to try to change that. But I just love this as a decolonial approach. It doesn't have to be everyone trying to own this one organization. It's really about the collective and what the collective needs and creating different organizations to meet those needs. So that's just so beautiful.
And it also resonates with me with the entire kind of core of oral tradition and storytelling, that it is a decentralized mode of art, and everything you're talking about when it comes to preservation of oral tradition is really resonant. Could you also specifically talk about the hakawati in Palestine? I know you've kind of been talking about it in some different ways, but especially for people who don't know what hakawati is, can you tell us more about that, how it relates to the storytelling that you do and teach, and how similar your storytelling might be to a traditional hakawati?
I count Hakawati as one way of storytelling techniques. As well, we have a lot of techniques and in storytelling. So the art of storytelling is a huge topic, where a hakawati is the Arabic version presented by a man who used to tell stories in the cafe, in the aliyah, that mean on the roof, to other people. That mean most of them are, they were men. Then he used to have his own stories about war, heroes, fighting, solving problems, and other men used to hear and even divide to two teams, like how we watch now. Sometimes people watch football and they go within either team and they chat and they go. Then Hakawati used to create this type of atmosphere where he divides also the audience to two teams. And this is the main storyteller, right? He is presented by Adam. And you know who's Adam? Adam, everyone know him, and he even was his story was written in holy books, right? But what about Eve? Eve is the women storyteller who is forgotten, and no one, even in profession, told about her in history that much. And the only things we know about her that she is the wife of Adam. Why is that? I have no idea. And this is I said about that women storyteller has to speak up and tell their stories in public and write that history through narrative all over. And then now we call this lady who tells that stories in public hakawatiya. Hakawati and hakawatiya come from the verb of haki or haka, mean someone who tells, speak or tell. Haka, يحكي حكايات, then continue and grow to حكايات, means stories or tales, then become hakawati or hakawatiya, the person who practice and who really does that type of action, who's telling that much, then he is hakawati. And the history did not speak about the women storyteller as hakawatiya. They always used to call her something, the mother of something, the mother of this, the mother of Muhammad, the mother of George, the mother of what's that makes no sense when they ignore this amazing, incredible, beautiful women who used to tell stories as UNESCO when they count what hakaya mean in Palestine. They said hakaya is the folk tales told by women. Women means the old ladies in Palestine, and they call it khararif, as Sharif Kana'na mentioned in his encyclopedia with Nabil Alqam. They created 5 books which have, I think, between 700 to 800 Palestinian folk tales told by women. Sometimes Sharif Kana'na called them fairy tales. I think I call them wonder tales and folk tales back to little tiny research. Anyway, hakawati is a way of storytelling. Hakawatiya is another way of storytelling, as well as we have another like 4 ways. I have been digging deep in researching about those techniques, and the Siraj Library Storytelling Center produce a book and curriculum to teach those methods so to people who would love to be a storytellers in Palestine. And we have in the Storytelling Academy in partnership with Georgetown University and the Storytelling Center also in Rome, in order to create new generations of storytellers in Palestine and extend more and more professionally all over the world. As well as we have another techniques in storytelling, like Sha'ir Rababa, the band who, the poet who have this Rababa and instruments where he tells that poem and tell a story in the same time to people who used to be that person who pass news before the radio and the TVs. That was this person, Sha'ir Rababa, who used to travel from place to another to tell what's happened to other community, to the next communities, and the people could learn about themselves and other people, other communities through that person. And he used to be a man as well. I don't want to forget also Nwah, those ladies who used to gather in a circle and just like sing specific songs and tell specific stories and wear black in a circle where is funeral and cry and do specific gestures in order to raise and memorize and even thank or be sad or be angry about this maybe loss for the person who was died, and other more techniques as well. So I think those are traditional Palestinian techniques, has to be also learned and research. Someone has to research them more and more. I think back to my researches, no one wrote about those as techniques of storytelling. I think that we were the only first people who wrote about that on a book. And we are happy to have that and to keep continue teaching this.
Yeah, I really want to see this book. Wow. Um, when inshallah in Palestine, inshallah I'll see you there this summer into the fall, because I would love to see the book. And I just appreciate this really comprehensive overview you gave. And also, sometimes I think people get really under the impression that storytelling has to look like quote theater. But really, like the storytelling you've been talking about is people going into the community. They don't have to be on stage in a spotlight, like women sitting in a circle wearing black and talking together. These things that often people say, like, oh, women are sitting and talking, but it's actually this really important way of continuing on traditions and passing on stories, especially in the instance, as you were talking about, where someone has died. So carrying on legacy through storytelling in this way. And I appreciated hearing. Besides hakawati and hakawatiya, I don't know the other techniques you're talking about. So that's really exciting research that you're doing.
Are there any other techniques that you want to just briefly mention? I know you talked about hakawati, hakawateya, shara baba, and noah. Are there any others that you can mention that the listeners can look up and learn more about in your book?
I think, yeah, for sure. We are now the storytelling students taking a course of Books of Wonder, and that's incredible technique where the storyteller have a box which have which have a lot of stories inside, and he is a man in the tradition. I mean, now I hope that will be a lady who will hold this box and travel all over Palestine to tell stories. And hakawati, box of wonder, and sha'ar rababa, they used to earn money out of their profession as well. Nuah, ladies who used to sing, tell stories in a circle for a funeral. That also that was in profession. That means they earn money in it. But hakawatiya, the women storyteller who used to tell stories in private in her family house, extended house, that she used to tell stories without money, because that's part of her profession as mommy, as grandmommy, as a granddaddy, as an aunt, as an just like family member. And she used to tell those stories in order to teach other ladies unconsciously, and even to breathe and to heal from maybe actions she had been living as well. I will not burn the secrets, because I'm still researching and searching about another three techniques. I will add them for another book, inshallah, and then I will keep that maybe for another podcast to tell more.
That sounds perfect.
All right, we'll take the cliffhanger. That's a great storytelling technique there that you're using to bring us back and keep us engaged. So we're very excited to hear about your research when it's ready. But all of this is incredibly important to, as you've said, freedom and survival for culture and for people. And there's so many, especially clearly female and feminist traditions that are really not talked about very often, but are so integral to the culture. So thank you so much for especially focusing on those traditions that are not talked about. It's incredibly important work. And I was wondering, what kinds of stories do you like to tell the most? Are there certain specific stories or topics that you especially like to focus on, or even traditions that you especially find yourself in as a storyteller?
I think I'm a spontaneous in my life. I would love always to tell stories which come to my mind, like I feel it in my heart, and even my body remembering some of it, to share it within my audience, wherever is that audience is. Um, I don't have any specific stories or things. I always trust my experience in life, and trust my traveling in Palestine, looking for natural storytellers and collect stories, hear from them, learn about their wisdom. And I just leave myself to improvise. The story will come on my stage to my audience. Sometimes I do for sure create my performance within specific way and even very sensitive way, but that sometimes take between like a month or even 10 years to be on stage, the story I was listening to. um, that's really such an experience to retell that story. It's another story, which is like to find the stories is a story, to create the story again is another story, and to tell the story in stage on stage for people, that's another story. So I think I put myself in three different experiences, and that means the whole process is the experience for me. So the whole process is the performance for me. The whole process is the learning, is the discovery, and that's all. We call it how stories can change people. So I do believe that stories I have been searching, looking, curating, writing, and performing did change me personally, deeply in my core. So about that, I do believe that I could change my audience and the people around me, and even not people, even stones, trees, nature around us, and even the energy all over us. And we hope, and I personally hope, that is the way to have our freedom and even to see the sun and the light for us Palestinians. Takes so much time, takes so much energy, take a huge number of people. But under this genocide war, I think narrative is very important to keep sharing it and continue and continue.
Yes, and continuing. I love that. Um, well, as someone who works on many projects at a time, can you tell us what are you working on right now? What are the things that are filling your cup and your time?
Yeah, now I work within the 10th grade high school, Ramallah high school, within the 10th grade, teaching them how they can tell stories. And we have the theme of Al-Nakba, that's with Ramallah Municipality. And back to that theme, the students have to collect and find stories where they do feel this is Nakba for them. You remember what's Nakba,
Of
that was
course.
like 1948. That's action, we call it, when the came and expelled and kicked and all Palestinians from their land in 48, next to the sea and here and there, and we become refugees all over Palestine and even outside Palestine. So I questioned the girls there, what does a Nakba mean for you? If Nakba finished or what? And many of them, all of them said, no, Nakba continuing and did not finish. And they collected stories to show me that Nakba is something did not finish, continuing until now. And they mentioned also the war, genocide war in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank of Palestine these days, the prisoners issues, and they mentioned the stealing land and apartheid wall and all the checkpoints. They mentioned as well the colonies, settlement, Israeli settlements here and there. And they mentioned also as well, for sure, 1948 Nakba action. And through stories they collected from elders, also through real stories they lived themselves in these days, and even the stories they learn about their uncles and who was maybe murdered or in prison. And those ladies, I worked with them, conduct them how they can tell the story back to the audience. And we were rehearsing just like 2 days ago, and the performance will be performed um, on the stage of the theater here in Ramallah City Center, where is the municipality, in memorizing a Nakba Day. May 16, the performance will be. And the second things I'm working on as well, opening the year one of the Storytelling Academy. Now we have two classes, year one and year two. And year two, we are in residence within the Box of Wonder, Adel Tertir, who teach the students how they can create Box of Wonder and how they can learn that technique and use it if they want in their journey of storytelling. And the second and year one, also we are questioning the students, questioning themselves about who are they, why they are here in Palestine, what shall they do, and which stories they should tell, why, when, and what is their own vision in storytelling. So we are developing those questions with them through the year. And as well as we are also looking forward to work within change. No, we will choose 3 stories within the British Council, that project, Siraj Libraries of the British Council, choose 3 stories in the narrative, and write that stories down in Arabic, then translate that stories to English and perform them Arabic English, and even use those stories in the Palestinian schools inside Palestine in partnership within the Ministry of Education. And we are targeting the English teachers at school as well. We are targeting the Storytelling Academy students who will be able to perform in 2 languages and learn how they can do that. And as well as we are planning to open another 2 libraries within Siraj Library, in 2 different locations within historical buildings. And we wish those libraries are the way to exist and archive and share the stories of us Palestinians to each other. And there is also a lot of things we are doing right now, but I will not tell about every tiny things, but we also Haram, Heart Artisan Art Museum. We started a new project within Gaza, in Gaza, about Gaza, within Gaza partner, uh, about collecting stories around before the war and now, what people have been doing, like before the October 7, and now what the same person doing. It's like to compare. It's not about compare, just to feel the sense and to see the transition and to feel it, how life have been changing through that. As well as we are exhibiting now in this minute, Jabal Arisan, Heart Arisan Art Museum, exhibiting like an exhibit part of Binali, uh, Oregon, in the United States. And we are like here believing that through this type of arts, we just, this is the way to go. This is the way to resist and root and to strength, and even the way of being, or we have to speak up in different ways. You can't just choose one way and say, we cannot do this. As well as we are in the planning of creating a film about Palestinian prisoners, and we are creating the storyboard for the film, documentary one. And I just don't want to continue because a lot of things we are doing. I'm doing with my colleague, friends, people, artists, internationals in Palestine, outside Palestine, and especially I'm making intensive work now here in Palestine within my Palestinian friends, people, and colleague and artists.
Wow, Fidaa, you do so much. I felt whenever I was emailing you to ask you to be on the podcast, I was like, I wonder if she even has time. And it sounds like you really don't, but we're so grateful to get to talk with you because, I mean, hearing about some of these projects, and we know it's not all of the projects you're working on, they're just some of them, but so important, like that, yes, the Nakba is ongoing, and to hear what students are bringing in, stories from families, but also their own stories. I mean, that's so meaningful and important to gather these stories and to collect them and to hear them and to make sure that even the rocks are hearing the stories that these people are telling. And then also what you were just saying, this video about political prisoners, I have to say, in the United States especially, and I know that you're not just making it for people in the United States, you're making it for people in Palestine, but there's such a lack of understanding of how many prisoners are in, Palestinians are imprisoned, and I can't imagine what it's like to gather those stories, but I can only say that for myself that I would be so not happy to hear them, but that they're so important to hear because they're so frequently left out of any narratives around Palestine. So, how important that you're gathering them and making this film that I do hope we'll be able to all see sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope so. As well, also we created like two. I created like directed two films. One is The Shepherdess. It's about the presenting story about salt and sugar, and I metaphoric that story in the Jordan Valley where they have the salty river and the sweet spring. And I showed the lady is a, she
Oh, I don't know about the Salty River and the Sweet Spring. That sounds cool.
yeah, that's even the miracle is applied there in Jordan Valley. Jordan Valley is presenting like 30% of the West Bank, and 88% of the Jordan Valley. It's in Area C under Israeli military. يعني under it's Israeli military zone, and it's the most beautiful place, magical place for me, minimum, in the world, and where we just feel something. It's the fruits there is have another taste, the light there have another taste, the spring, even the spirit, even your body if you go there will feel different. So which is the Jordan Valley is under a big threat. So about that I created that film to just show the sweet and the salt of the place. The sweet presented by a lady who have been existing there working hard between her kids, her sheep, and go to the mountain, creating fire, creating food, creating life, and facing all this injustice and skeletons as well as challenges by not having this checkpoint, having this soldiers, having this sign, having this colony, having this all that injustice around here, no water, no electricity, living in a tent all the time. Her house has been demolished. It's a short movie and would be between documentary and imaginative, as well as another. That was what that film was produced by Shashat, and the second film I came, but I did not arrive. That was produced by the Storytelling Center, which I also speak the story about a Palestinian musician who have been like living a lot of hard life, started when he's a refugee, Palestinian refugee living in, was born in Lebanon. Then he exit to Yemen, then to Syria, then back to Lebanon, then going back to Palestine within Oslo. After Oslo, then Gaza. Then now he back to the West Bank of Palestine, and he became a musician, a very beautiful musician who play accordion, keyboard, and durbaka, and just like beautifully, nicely, we tell the story without any word, you know, with just only visually, and it's a short movie as well. Those are cinema movies. Maybe you can find the trailer here and there, but I wish we can show them here and there as well, more and more.
Well, we wanna see all of your work, more and everywhere. It's important to the whole world, and, really lovely to speak to you about especially how you are connecting these traditional stories to the present day and talking about the future through that. You've really found this way to capture storytelling, capture and preserve the traditional storytelling, but really move it into the future, especially with work with young folks, but also in the ways that you are uh, building new institutions and documenting and writing books and making movies that can live on, and especially in that continuation of oral tradition, which is so difficult to figure out how to do that in a way that's really authentic and preserves the actual methodology of oral tradition. So it's been really incredible to talk to you, Fidaa. We'll be looking out for all of your work. We both want to read that book, and also we'll be waiting to hear more about the other storytelling traditions that you're still researching now. So thank you so much for being here on this podcast today. It was such a pleasure and an honor.
Yes, thank you. Inshallah, see you soon.
Thank you so much, Marina and Nabra, and we wish to see you here in Palestine and just to share stories together. And I just would love to mention that the type of storytelling that we are doing here is not only traditional. We go ahead with 2024 and the century we are living, as we use tradition as roots to root ourselves in order to grow and have so much fruits and vegetables. So thank you so very much. And we live and we tell stories in order to live and exist and root and heal.
Wow.
That's a beautiful way to end, Fidaa. Yes. Thank you. This podcast is produced as a contribution to HowlRound Theatre Commons. You can find more episodes of Kunafa and Shay and other HowlRound podcasts by searching HowlRound wherever you find podcasts. If you loved this podcast, please post a rating and write a review on your platform of choice. This helps other people find us. You can also find a transcript for this episode, along with a lot of other progressive and disruptive content on the HowlRound.com website. Have an idea for an exciting podcast, essay, or TV event the theater community needs to hear? Visit HowlRound.com and contribute your ideas to the Commons.
Yalla, bye.